Yo, yo, yo.
Dude.
Oh, hold on. Something's going on.
Yeah, Tristan's on.
Um, well, let me try something. Hello?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
worse.
worse?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There we go. There we
Yeah,
go.
yeah, that's better. That's much better.
All right, I'm gonna start the stream. I kind of forgot how like the audio input works with OSB and the stream, so let's
OBS, but yeah.
uh, yeah.
Um, so everybody else's audio will be fed through the desktop audio, and then yours is fed through the mic slash aux, and then
Okay, so I
yeah,
need to keep the mic slash aux
yeah.
on,
But
not mute it.
right, are you planning on sharing your screen at all though?
Ooh, yes.
Cause I can run the stream here, and
That would maybe be good since you don't have a talking point tonight, I guess.
yeah, I have it pulled up too. Um, and I
Okay.
saw you edited the title already.
Yeah. Long ass title.
Yeah, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit.
And there is a podcast category on Twitch.
Oh, there is.
I don't know how recent they added that, but there is one. Talk shows and
Oh
podcasts.
yeah.
Pretty?
I don't know, man. He's been like AWOL and like,
I'm gonna call them
bro,
the
call
best
him
way.
right now.
I wish we could share OBSs. Because I got like all the overlays like set up just a second ago.
Yeah, I have him too.
Calling Mr. Porter.
Put him on speaker and put him on the mic, just like Kill Tony. Left on red. Brutal. Just brutal.
Don't you dare. Oh,
Bro.
there was like just enough space, so I was like, maybe he answered.
Fucking hoser.
Damn.
He's Chief Hoser, bro. Man, hosing. Like,
Oh man. We only expect like 15 minutes too. Like, bro, just give us the sauce. You can be on your merry way afterward. Do whatever Brady does at 9 p.m.
yeah, like,
every night.
I don't know what's going on.
And he's like the most like I don't know. It's weird. If I had like his social skills, I'd be all about this podcast.
Right,
But that's just me.
right. I mean, you
I got
can.
so many good clips of him yesterday.
Right, right. He was killing it.
By the way, they're all only accessible through the Hoser Squad Twitch.
Right, right.
They're all posted to the account and you can only download them through the account, I guess.
Right, right. Gustavo had the same thing, but it's able to be downloaded and also posted straight to YouTube. But it's better to have it like
Wait, can we just get like a
clipped up.
rolling YouTube Shorts? Just post them all on there?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is like the quality is only like okay. They
Oh, that's true.
kind of have to be cleaned up or
Yeah.
shortened a bit,
Some
or
editing,
yeah,
like zooms here and
yeah,
there.
yeah,
That'd
something.
be cool.
Yeah, but other than that, like it's not really
Did you see the clip with Brady doing his Kanye bit?
no, but
It's just like him rambling, and then
yeah.
Vanessa's testing her audio. She goes, "Hello," and he just keeps rolling through.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Bro, he
And then
has it. I that homie can just talk
yeah, he can
and it
just keep going
sounds
and
like
going.
half okay, but like imagine if he tried at speaking like as hard as he tries at like I don't know, you know,
Yeah,
but it's just so natural, it
wasted talent.
no, I mean
No, no.
he's I mean he's pulling in bank too, so it's like it works, I guess. Like
Yeah.
there's like an auto zoom thing on your camera. It like resets every like 15 seconds or so.
Oh,
Yeah,
do that.
yeah. It was happening a bunch, but I already saw that it started. Um,
And I just wait and see if it does it again. Maybe it's because I'm moving like this.
no, like you probably want to just turn it off and have like the focus set because you won't be improving like too much.
Hmm.
But you wanna do the intro and like maybe not like now. Hopefully we can scoop Brady, but probably not. I had a
Yeah,
feeling
I could do the intro.
it was a bill and don't call us architects. Um,
Do what now?
don't call us. Just one second.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yo, Tristy,
Uh,
it's not smoking anymore. But her cord on her bike just started smoking, and it's like all like
what?
melted and shit. Yeah,
What the fuck?
yeah. So I'll be right back. But I don't think we'll have Brady, but we can part it us three and just see what
Well, at
happens.
least we got another discussion tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
It's so weird this time.
Barking at me. This is hilarious.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
You have
Do
audio?
you have the same mic as us?
Is it playing off of them? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
Weird.
that's like concerning.
Do you have the same mic as us?
Yeah.
Oh shit. I keep an eye on mine now.
Yeah, I have to be careful, I guess.
No
No
Brady.
Brady. Wow. Womp womp.
Are we next week are we transitioning to Wednesdays?
No. Why'd
No.
you ask?
Thought I saw something at some point.
No, it's Monday for in Taiwan. But honestly, if like no one, if it's like way too busy for this many people, then
Yeah.
it might trim the show, or it might I don't know yet. We'll see.
I almost want like I like how I guess flexible the weekend is. Like when we did it yesterday, um I don't know, there was like time afterwards to like get those clips for whoever's doing the producing job. But I know people will be like, "Oh, the weekend's like my free time. I don't want to do that." And who knows, I might not want to do that down the line as well. But there's something about it that's just like we can do it any time of day. We can do it in the morning, like we wake up, do it, and we get the rest of the day to ourselves.
Right.
It just seems like there's more flexibility there. And I'm sure people are busy during the week as well, but maybe people are less inclined to join at the end of the day when they're tired and they just want to, lay on the sofa, turn on some TV,
Yeah.
or play Call of Duty.
Yeah. I,
So I don't know. We'll keep testing it out and see what day works.
yeah. I'm not sure what would be best. I'll be right back. We want to get rolling.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Welcome, everyone, to our little series of Hoser Squad Hoser discussions. And today we're going to be talking about something, we're going to be talking informally just about something that's been on my mind a little bit. And it's, you could call it current events because it is kind of dealing with our current day of and our current state of design. We seem to be in like this state of not exactly knowing where we're at in design philosophy. We're taught, in school, we can go into that, like, we're taught all these past historical design philosophies and styles, I guess you could call them. But really, we would call them theologies or theories or architectural theories. But it seems very clear whenever you look back in the past and you can list off all of these different movements throughout architecture, and you can classify by the decade which theory the current or the times are using. But now in our present day, things seem to be spiraling more and more out of the realm of certainty, and it seems like it's more up for interpretation. Really hard to pinpoint, I guess, when you're living in the present time. I'm sure Frank Lloyd Wright couldn't pinpoint his present time architecture as being prairie style. It's sort of something that, others in the future have to label for you. Um, except for Philip Johnson, he somehow knew exactly what he was doing and he pushed it and got all these architects recognized for having the modern style. But the modern's a really big one, but there's all these little ones that were going on at the same time. Like international style is kind of like a different take on modern, or it's like taking modern to an urban setting, I guess. But then there's like um, the arts and craft movement kind of going on at the same time. Um, you could label some of Frank Lloyd Wright's stuff in that same way. So labels are kind of a weird thing to where I guess you could do multiple labels for one type of style, which makes things even more confusing because especially in the present day, because as time goes on, you get more and more labels and people just interpret things very differently, and we end up with just all these different individual ideas. And so that's why we're here today to discuss what the hell architectural style we're in today. And I guess I kind of want to start, I want to bring it back to our education, to college, to school, when we learned all this stuff, and it did seem kind of straightforward. In studio, our professors, a lot of our professors were big on those architects from the modernist style. Le Corbusier, Mies van der Rohe, IMP, um, the list goes on and on and on. And it's very easy to, I guess, identify those architects from those eras because these architects had, of course, they were following the style, even if they didn't know it, but you can tell by looking at their buildings themselves that the characteristics you find in them are, uh, they call to that style. And those styles exist because there's, prominent figures like Le Corbusier who write these theories or papers on that style. And he kind of outlines some rules to follow if a building was to be classified in that style. Um, and we've had Monty, you might need to help me here. The different like manifestos. There's the three prominent manifestos throughout the years that have like marked this turning of the ages of style. So the first one was um, name starts with a V.
Vitruvius.
Vitruvius and his architecture.
What?
This is something I should have pulled up
Yeah,
beforehand, but
what experts? You can do it. I
we're
believe in
all
you.
learning here together. 6 fundamentals of architecture.
So it's Petruvius and his 4 books,
4 books.
Alberti and his 10 books. That might be flipped. And then there's Vajay and Korg.
Oh, geez. I left out a bunch. What about complexity and contradiction?
If you count that, yeah.
By none other than Robert Venturi. All these important guys have
Some websites
V's.
also call The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs also a manifesto. Because
Interesting.
there's manifesto, but then there's treatise, and it's like these very old school terms that we don't necessarily parse out today. But like, is complexity and contradiction, or Frank Lloyd writes The Art and Craft of Making, is it more of a manifesto or a treatise? Because a manifesto is almost like one's own beliefs, versus a treatise is like, this is how it should be, which is
Yeah,
splitting hairs, but
I know it's kind of hard to decide because they're both like opinions either way
right,
you look at it. And it's from those like strong opinions that are documented out that we get like the birth of a new movement. Like complexity and contradiction was the birth of postmodernism, a lot of people would say, because it's a writing that you kind of get the feeling that Venturi is just like, okay, I'm kind of fed up with this modernist like crap. Like, what's the reason we're even doing architecture this way? And why don't we switch it up to do it in a more useful way to the common person? So you switch from like a modernist era where um architects are being, I guess, more liberal with the materials they're using. That's caused by like the birth of these mass production materials like steel, and architects are treating their buildings kind of like these. The modernism is a weird one because there are the architects who treat their buildings like an object, but then there's the ones like Le Corb who you could argue are really using the new materials for the space.
right,
And that's kind of something that I think carries through all movements of architecture.
right.
It's more
Pane, what
about
you
the
think?
context, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Pane, what you think?
He's like, I don't know, just keep going, Tristan. I
Uh,
don't think we
can
hear you through the mic.
Oh, you can't hear the mic?
Oh, now we
Um,
can.
can't,
now you can?
but it's like broken up.
Take the cap off of it. The foam thing, whatever it is. The guard on the top of it.
I don't think it works anymore. I had to
Oh,
change to my headphones.
oh. Hmm.
It wasn't
Just try it
even an
out.
option. Okay.
Damn, so much for that. You just got it.
Yeah. I'll have to check that again. But I've been having problems lately with it. But yeah, I was just listening to what Tristan was saying about these architectural movements. I am a bit like my memory's a bit bad when it comes to that stuff. I feel like I need to reread some of these books to
Me too.
refresh my mind about all these movements. I guess like a critique I've always had about these movements is that that it almost talks about architecture from a point of like this European standard, um, and not really go too much into other cultures. So it's like a lack of representation across the world, which I've always thought that Latin America has some pretty interesting buildings. Some of it does come from Spanish architecture in Spain, though for the most part, and then some of these European movements, like international style, has made an influence in Latin America too, so that has spread. I just feel like there's more architecture that's not widely talked about in architecture school that I'm not even informed of myself. And that could be for a multitude of reasons. I mean, Latin American countries, and I'm sure other places like, I mean, Asia has their own kind of modern architecture now that is like new age I don't even know what to call it, but like I'm thinking of like Singapore, Japan, they have this very high tech modern architecture that
Mhm.
is new, but there's like architecture that's like older than that in Asia, as well as architecture possibly in Africa. And I would like architecture school to go more into depth in that. Um, because these European and American architecture is only a fraction of what people are doing all over the world. And
Right. I
and
pulled up
that
the timeline of like different uh I guess movements of architecture throughout the years. And if you can see, it goes all the way from 1000 to present day, and this is like a really broad overview, but you can catch a few in there like Romanesque and Gothic and High Renaissance to Baroque to Georgian Gothic Revival, all those like American hijacks of past movements, modernism, Bauhaus, international style, postmodernism, and I think it even zooms in from 1750 to 1900. And I mean, the more you zoom in, just like when you're on Google Maps and you zoom in, you get a higher resolution. There's like all these side movements going on at the same time. So when I ask the question, like, what is our current movement? It could be 10 different current movements. And that depends on where you are throughout the world, like you were saying, Vanessa. Like things that are happening in Europe, maybe they're not happening over here in America at the same time, but it maybe, give it a couple decades, it'll like translate over here. So it'll kind of be like we're lagging behind while Europe is doing their own thing, and Japan, like you said, is already in, super future high technology mode over there. And I think that was even a, yeah, 1900 to present here. See, this one's interesting because this is getting more into our present day, and we follow from like, brutalism in the 1950s, postmodernism, and I haven't even heard of a lot of these. Arcology, Memphis Group, Neo-futurism. Pretty sure that happened in the 1920s, but that's interesting. There's Nazi architecture up here too. In the 1930s, of course, Usonian. And then we get to like the top of our
is
list,
that Google then?
deconstructivism.
Google at the same
This
time
is,
as brutalism?
oh, I think it says Googie. I think that's an I.
Okay.
Not sure what that is. You know what? I'm curious because you never know if something is just like making stuff up. Okay, this seems like Space Needle,
Oh, that one looks
like
like it's
Jetsons
LA.
architecture.
Oh yeah,
That first image, I think that's LA.
yeah. That's LAX, and the restaurant under it is Norms. It's like trying to be
Yeah,
high
it's like
angles.
this
Yeah.
like Jetsons gas station kind of early McDonald's.
Wow.
It's like what do you call it? Like fast food architecture almost. Gas station.
Like that sign, Las Vegas.
Yeah, so
It
and we
reminds
don't
me
think
of,
of go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say it reminds me of the buildings we'd see in the movie Cars from Disney,
Yeah.
where they drive through
It's like
the
the
American Southwest.
Southwest. Yeah, it's like Route 66 type of vibes going on in here. Here's the Jetsons. Yeah, and see, like we don't even really generally think of this throughout history, like these small little things that pop up like little blips in history just for a second. But this is like what happens in architecture, and I'm interested to know like which trends today are these little mini ones that we're seeing, and which one is like the one driving the course of history right now.
Is this
Um,
all the way to present?
yeah, well, yeah, pretty much. Deconstructivism, parametricism, contemporary. The contemporary is a really ambiguous one
Right. It's like pop.
because always just used it for like present day, like cool details, like piano buildings, uh, morphosis buildings. Like I've always just anything that's new and uses very complex geometry.
But even
Uh,
just the word contemporary simply means right now, along
right.
with you, contemporary. Like,
Yeah. Then it's
it,
like, how about the architects of the 1950s? Like, were
yeah.
they doing contemporary architecture for them?
Yeah,
It's weird how things are classified. It's hard to wrap your head around it.
no, just switch the word contemporary for present. You know, like
Hmm.
everyone's always doing contemporary architecture.
Right. So this contemporary category will just shift with the times. It'll just keep going up or
Right.
down
It makes
the time
no
graph.
sense. And like, what's even like neo modern? Like, I guess it's neo because it's not in the exact time it grew out of. But if you're doing that style, aren't you just like doing that style instead of neo? Like, is there a point to?
I
See,
mean, something about this that's interesting to me is that when there's like a movement in history, other art movements tend to copy the way that movement functions. For example, pop art was really popular in the 1940s, and Andy Warhol, he created like a screen print of basically duplicating the same artwork as many times as you want, which in a way is like symbolic of the mass production of cars. And then when you think about the architecture at that time, we were, um, I think around the time of just at, or no, I think high rises have been around like high rises started in like the late 1930s, and the car, well, it started in like 1930. So it's like that time period where people are just doing mass production. And it's interesting how pop art kind of took that same function and then made copied that. So
right.
it'll be interesting to see what happens today, because today the criticism of today is that, I mean, everything's becoming online. There's not really like a channel, like a unifying channel on the TV or radio that we all chime in on. We can basically choose whatever we want to hear and watch. And whatever I can choose to hear and watch things from 30, 50 years ago, or things that are current. And there's no way of knowing if the person next to me hears the same things I do. Um, unless we're in the same household, of course, but like my coworker or acquaintance. So like everything's becoming like very niche. where we're almost like separated from this unifying media. And even like it's interesting to see like what art how that will affect architecture, because before there was like trends, and I guess if you go further back, some trends can last hundreds of years, but in the past 100 years they were getting shorter and shorter spans. um but now it's like what is the span? Is it like a month? Well, architecture
Right.
is not a month.
Right. It's like you can feel things kind of accelerating as for many different reasons. Like you said, the media has like multiplied, so there's so many different streams of consciousness flowing to us every day. We have access to, anything put on the internet, which is a lot of stuff. And one thing, Monty, that your dad told me in his class was architects should know, they should make it a point to know, have like any kind of subject like down in a, you know, in a, in the back of their mind. Like they should be fans of art, they should be fans of music, because all these different factors, the culture, they play into the architecture. And I think these movements, you can, I mean, you can go down this list and you can identify why that is, that the architecture was reflecting that type of style. And if we go back to like the Googie, that happens around the 1950s. That's after, World War II. That's when all the soldiers come home, mass production homes are set up, and we enter like the Cold War stage, which is like everyone's thinking about atomic bombs, space, and that's why you get like this resultant like uh, this Jetson like architecture, and it reminds me of a game I used to play called Fallout. Very popular game, but the premise of Fallout is that it's like a separate universe, like a parallel universe where I think instead of discovering the transistor radio, which apparently everything that all the technology we know today was spawned from a transistor, as far as like computers and all that. So in the game, the universe you're in does not discover that, and everything is powered by atomic power instead.
Oh,
Cars, like everything has like a nuclear reactor in it. And in the game, like spoilers, the nukes go off from some other country and blow up the world, and now you're in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. But everything you find in it is all powered, like the lights are powered by nuclear technology. Um, so like it's the culture of the times that really does pour into the styles and theories that you're going to find in architecture. Um, and I saw this sustainable up here as being a category. It's funny that that's a style of architecture instead of like a characteristic of architecture. Well, it is, but the fact that they mention it here in this table of architectural styles, like you can tell someone, "Hey, draw me a brutalist building," and you'll get a brutalist building. But you say, "Hey, draw me a sustainable building," you could get a any type of building, and then people tack on like solar panels, uh,
right, right.
operable windows, because sustainability is like characteristics of architecture. And I've always wondered, like you see in all the top architecture magazines, the projects that they're featuring, usually the title always mentions something about sustainability or LEED Platinum Award, or buildings that are the focus is on their performance rather than their design. The design is kind of second to that. Like the overall form of the design, I guess I would say, because sustainability is still design. But I guess that's just sort of, it would be correct to say that that's just like a present day style of architecture, because it seems like a lot of projects start with that goal in mind before it even hits the concept desk. Like these are, especially with lead now, you have to, the client, if they want to get this lead certified building, that's the first thing you're going to start with, is you got to go down this checklist of items you got to get to certify it, and it becomes like the cornerstone of your design philosophy for the building you're making.
Right.
So, and I don't know if it has to be that way, because there's plenty of examples of sustainable architecture before present time. It's really, it's a choice of the architect, I think. It should always be pushed on the projects that you're doing, but I don't know, it seems like it's like pushed nowadays in like this mass, like mass media is just like pushing this down all of our throats.
Right.
And it's really hard to keep up with it unless your clients are pulling out more dollar bills from their pocket, because these things aren't really cheap. Of course, there's the passive ways to get sustainability, but that can only get you so far. A lot of, didn't we have a talk about sustainability? Or maybe I wanted to do one and I never got to it, but it's like sustainability is like a pop word that a lot of people say, but they don't really know what it means. But like in reality, sustainability is like more money, and it's
But
a result
why?
of,
Break that
it's a
down.
result of the tech, the increasing technology of our times, because we're just like in the modernist movement, you unlock all these materials that are, steel beams and steel columns now carry much larger spans, so you're going to make architecture with more space in it, less massive columns coming down. So nowadays we have all these new engineering technologies for HVAC systems and electrical systems. You're going to get the demand from clients or governments or whoever is running this sustainability initiative to use those technologies in the architecture now. So it's, again, it's like a reflection of our time. The fact that we're coming up with these new sustainability practices, and it's like things that happen outside of architecture too. Like it hasn't happened yet, but like I'm sure cell phone production, which is a huge thing. Everyone has a cell phone now. They come from these alkaline batteries. Right now, it's like a super unsustainable thing, like the mining of I can't think what's the mineral that they use in these batteries nowadays.
Bro, it's cobalt.
Cobalt mining. It's a super terrible thing, right? It's something that takes place. We don't think about it, but it's something that takes place in another country where American companies that make these, including like electrical vehicles using these as well, they
Right,
outsource
right.
to get cheaper labor, and it allows us to buy an iPhone for $500 or whatever it is nowadays,
Yeah,
$1,000.
right. And that word sustainable is one that they only have on the front end, but then they don't really bring any receipts after. There's only a few buildings that have such a positive, substantial impact, at least in terms of energy, because the green people, like, if you push it all the way to its extreme, it's like, well, then we shouldn't have any interaction with the planet at all. And then
Yeah, we should just plant
and then
trees after
so
government building.
right, and then so what, humans just don't have shelter and they don't exist, and they're just up to whatever the common weather patterns are. That, that's obviously not possible or not going to happen. And even as you brought up lead, obviously a lot of thought is gone into what those standards are, but what do you really get from a quote lead building in terms of like, can they produce the hard scientific numbers of how much XYZ is saved from doing this, or are we just in this, okay, here's a Grammy, here's an Oscar, we're patting you on the back because you fit in our box, instead of what is actually great for this site, this environment. And obviously lead has a bunch to do with how close materials are sourced, how water and solar and overall heat gain is affected. But honestly, that's architecture. Bringing in this whole idea of it being sustainable, it's like, no, that's just bad design. Because even think of how Corb designed his houses all over the globe. The houses in the Middle East were far different than the ones in war-torn Europe. There was a much different need, and he wasn't even really building a bunch of villas per se in Europe. That was much more mass housing, versus in the Middle East, he would build these huge concrete structures with sunshades to cool the inside. That's not needed in Northern Europe as much, So with these kinds of notions of true site design, and how are we buttressing against
Brady's calling. Sorry.
a...
What he has to say.
Put him on speaker.
Hello. What's up, bro? We're waiting for your talk on finessing. Where you at, bro?
Be honest with you, buddy. Are you on the pod right now?
We are. You're on the pod.
You're on the pod.
So
Next week?
We can do next week.
Bet. Be there. Monday.
All right. Mondays. Yeah, why do we always do Mondays?
We'll look at changing it down the line because a lot of people don't like Mondays, but that's what it is for right
Okay.
now. All right, bud?
Cool. What?
All right?
All right.
I'm counting on you. We need to know. Everyone needs to know.
Right.
We didn't get an offer. How many up they're gonna give me an offer?
It's not about your offer. It's about your skills, Brady.
Like, yeah, you don't walk there. You gotta walk in there and speak. Business to business people.
Hell yeah. All right, boy. We'll see you next week then.
So the gang is
All right. See ya.
It's not always the best speakers and communicators are the best teachers, and understand how to pass that along. Because people who have high ease, they don't even quite think of that strategy. For instance, Vanessa's brother is really great at meeting and speaking with anybody at any time, and actually becoming lifelong friends with them. And I asked him, bro, like, how do you, like, it's just so easy. Like, how do you do it? He's like, bro, it's just easy. I just do it. I'm like, bro, that explains nothing at all about how you keep up with people. But he has a bunch of stories, but one is that in high school, he was friends with the police officer, and that cop brought him over a birthday present. That's how, like, tight they were. Right.
That's
and
wild.
Yeah, and it's not just cops, because he's not a snitch, but so back to the word contemporary. I'm staring at this book I have for precedent study, and it's literally published by Contemporary World Architects. And on the back, the first sentence of the intro is James Cutler is one of those rare contemporary architects who has converted environmental technology and a strong earth consciousness into art.
I think
Earth
it's a lot.
consciousness. That's an interesting phrase.
Yeah, it
That's
seems
what
like
it is, though. But yeah, sorry.
everything nowadays is playing towards like what will make the best headline or the best sounding headline, the most politically correct headline.
Right.
It's kind of like, remember that discussion we had a few talks back talking about movies and how they've gone from what was the term I used? Um, it was the scientific term, entropy.
Oh yeah.
So how films have gone from non-entropic to entropic, which means non-entropic usually means like the theory of entropy is that things will spiral out of control continuously into chaos. It'll devolve into chaos. So non-entropy is the opposite of that. From chaos you get meaning, you get one directive. So old films, all the classic greats, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, they all have like this, the hero's arch is an example of a non-entropic idea. It's something that pulls all the side characters, their purpose is to serve the main idea that the story is trying to get through. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit is all about that heroic arc that happens, and you can go from the Hobbit stuck in uh, Bag End or the Shire, from your comfortable life to going to fighting a dragon, and then you end up a better man at the end or a better Hobbit at the end. So that's what films used to aim towards, and I'm sure we still get films doing that today, but it's like music styles, they go out of style. Like it's kind of falling out of favor with the new generations. So now we get these movies that are entropic, which means the main point is not really clear. It's more about the flashy craziness that can happen in the film that draws you in, and it seems like it ties in with like the commercial aspect of it, like the capitalist aspect. Like you need to grab as many viewers as possible, just like the Social Network um documentary, like about the how Facebook is just trying to get those clicks, engagement, get you on the app as long as possible so they get paid. Kind of the same thing happening with the movies. It's, there's these different references in the movies. It's all these little jokes that kind of play towards younger generations that I don't quite understand all the time. But, and I'm going to pick on the Marvel movies because it seems like they're kind of going down the entropic path. Because I didn't watch the last Flash movie, but I've seen like snippets of it, and it's just like a CGI nightmare or mess.
Dang.
But apparently, I'll talk to some people and they say, "Hey, that was a really anything as wild as that." And it seems like that's the only like aspect that's intriguing about the movies is that they're wild or they're fun and they're crazy, and we haven't seen anything like that before. But it's not like you don't take away like these deep emotional aspects away from the movies. You don't feel the emotion that Frodo felt, and I'm gonna keep being a Lord of the Rings nerd here because it's like the perfect example of like a old-fashioned non-entropic movie because there's the main character. I remember I did it was either in high school or college, but a paper about the heroic arc, and we were given The Hobbit as an example, and we had to write down all the characters that were the side characters and the wise character that helps the main character through hard trials, and of course that's Gandalf and Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. But I don't know, the movies just were playing towards something that was really deeply human about us.
Right.
And that's why when you went to see a movie and you came out of the theater, you felt different. You felt like warm inside. You were like, dang, that made me think a little bit. And not only a little bit, but you keep thinking about that movie. And that's why we go back to those movies, because you can watch them over and over and you still get that feeling. It's like listening to a song because it gets you hyped up, or it gets you, even like listening to a sad song, it still makes you feel good in the end, that you're feeling the emotion of it.
Right. And
Ugh. And all of that just to say, like, there's the same thing is kind of happening with architecture, like the classics, the greats. Like, that's why I think, yeah, the death of the individualist, that talk we had, like, we're losing like the heroes of architecture, and I guess we're replacing them with like the firms,
mm,
the monster mega corporations of
mm,
architecture that are directing.
mm,
They're getting all these large projects, and what's really weird is seeing the firms that have the name of the original great on it, but that great is like long past, or he like retired,
or
and
dead.
or he's still in the company, but like what is he even doing? Like, the designs coming out. The weirdest one is what's the biggest guy? One of the whites, not race, but the whites and the grays.
Meyer.
Um, Meyer.
Yeah.
Meyer's a weird one because it's no, not Meyer, but Eisenman maybe, or Eisman. Sorry, Peter Eisman. Maybe Meyer too, but it's like now they're kind of replaced by their firm, which are usually these younger people who have their own ideas about things, which is great. I don't think like a continuous Meyer would hold up in our present day world. Like, architecture is
Some,
meant to evolve.
sometimes with those firms, they change the name, like, and make it abbreviate it. For example, it could be like, I'm gonna make up a name here, like David Jones Architecture, but then they change it to BJ Architect. Um,
Mm. That's
they've done
something
that,
that,
but
yeah, my firm
DJ Architects.
actually used to be Rinka Chung, because that was I guess the full name of the guy, but now it's Rinka Plus, because it's like it's being inclusive, like, of everyone who contributes to the firm, because it started
yeah,
from a few people to 50 people now,
Nice.
which is a cool thing.
Yeah.
I think it's
yeah.
cool. It's
Though when
very,
it
like,
comes
selfless.
to, no, I was thinking about like Zaha Hadid. I mean, that's like a world-known name. She's obviously not directing anything now, so, but they kept the name. So
Mhm.
that that's I think
But
where you were getting at.
a lot of people refer to him as ZHA now.
Right. Even
Zaha
like
Hadid and
on
Associates.
paper, and it's wild, and it's really just for that marketing, and it's honestly a bit disingenuous. It is paying homage, but it's an odd thing. Like, imagine if, I don't know, if like another product, this is a service, but imagine like if Coca-Cola was called, I don't know, Dr. Pepper, and then Dr. Pepper dies. Are you changing the name? But it's not the same product. Like, we are a service-based industry, and
But like Bob Ross, when he died, somehow his name was used. It was kept by the people he worked with before. There's a documentary on Netflix about it. It'll make you angry. Bob Ross was such a nice guy, and his name was stolen by his business partner, and now they still use it to sell
wow,
like products like Bob Ross paintbrushes, Bob Ross paint, uh, you know, everything Bob Ross related out there is a stolen brand. They made him sign a paper in his deathbed or something,
Wow.
which is terrible. And like
It's a
his son
nasty
is still
game.
around, and
That is so depressing.
yeah, I mean, imagine you're his family, you're his descendants, and there's this company with your name out there. It has nothing to do with you. You don't get a paycheck or anything. It's
I mean,
crazy.
that even reminds me of Kate Spade, um, which is a famous like fashion line. I think mainly purses.
Mm.
And Kate Spade, I think she sold her company before she passed, and she ended up committing suicide, actually.
Wow.
But like someone else owns the company, and it's still like known as like Kate Spade purses.
Right.
It's not even like shortened or abbreviated. It's not like KS purses. It's Kate Spade.
Right.
Right. And especially in architecture, when they start off that name branding, it's just such an interesting choice because in any other business they would say don't do that because it puts the viability of the entire business on the social acceptance of whatever person. And
Mm.
that, as strong as it can be, it's as fallible and as volatile. But we do it as architects, isn't it? It's, that's so befuddling, and it's why I'm trying to find like an actually interesting and pointed and theme. There are a bunch out there that try or are a bit more catchy. I saw one. They're just called the architecture group, but like that's horrible for SEO and like googling, because
Oh
then
yeah.
everything you can't stand out with that. But if I googled Rinka, that's popping up, So,
Oh yeah.
but then Rinka, or if it's one name, then it does kind of evolve, or if it becomes an acronym, then because let's also face it, even at 10, 12, 15 employees, you aren't touching everything out the door. So why name it after you? Because
Mhm.
unless you are the only licensed person, that makes sense, because you, you are technically doing all that work, because you are stamping it. And that is the actual official thing. Because in court, they won't care who like actually drew it. I mean, they will to a certain extent, especially if there's malfeasance. But the person who stamped it, that's like
That's
a
the liability.
right, and that's
Mhm.
also the big gigantic risk. But just choosing a company name is much more of a marketing choice, and hopefully it is to kind of the style of the day possibly, or one that can transcend that. Even the word style is odd to me because I don't know, it's ever changing. And in school it was always like, it ain't about style, it's about space and structure and material and
Mhm.
form and people and how it interacts with the earth, which is really what sustainability is. But let's try and hone in and define what we think today, or at least the dominant is, because it being so global, it's like what they're building in Central Africa will be different from the Amazon and from Taiwan, or from, like on and
Right.
on and on, So there is,
Right. Like we didn't have Nazi architecture in America.
well,
It's all these different, well, there's all these different, you know, locales of architecture happening simultaneously.
and
But
also
usually throughout history you get like that one persevering, like you get the modern movement, you get the
right.
contemporary movement or something.
So what do y'all think is it today in as many
Let me give you an
words,
example.
you know, because it doesn't have to be, you know, like, oh God. Yeah.
I
That is
searched this.
definitely today.
Oh God.
Yeah, I searched
Or
it
American
501
architecture.
architecture,
The dreaded
and I've
mixed-use
seen
building, huh?
yeah, I've seen like so many articles about these buildings, and it's like so polarizing. Like I used to live in one of these
Yeah, me
buildings
too.
uh,
Us,
for
us
school,
too, yeah.
I mean,
and
some
it was a
communities would
pleasant.
say gentrification.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
too.
that's one of the reasons people don't like it because it replaces like uh, the old buildings that are there already, which a lot of the times are more beautiful than these strange like anamorphous blobs poking out of another
Yeah.
blob, and it's weird because or it's funny because in my current firm we kind of do stuff like this,
Oh,
and it's hard. Well, I
Tristy.
mean,
Oh,
it doesn't look like,
Tristy.
you
What,
know, we
Tristy?
have
What are you
a
doing?
certain
I,
we
I
have a
thought you
certain
said you liked your
standard.
job. What happened?
I mean, there's a
Money,
reason
we do
why
stuff
it,
like
I mean, there's a reason why older buildings also get replaced by these buildings.
Right,
It's
right.
just like the older buildings sometimes have toxic molds and
yeah,
just
or
like
just like
other.
the
Or
windows are old, like
yeah, like so
16-inch windows, and they
old
don't
plumbing,
insulate as
even you know, like
well. Yeah.
stuff does break, and especially stuff built in the 30s to 50s. They were just putting it all to like, whatever they thought was fine instead of having a higher standard or understanding. Yeah, this will break down in the
So
pretty soon.
I I brought this image up because it is similar to the stuff that I do at my firm, because it's hard it's hard to get away from something that is
Oh wait,
synonymous in our culture, because the people who are paying us are developers most of the time, and developers are the people who come up with these schemes, really.
yeah,
Or of course some architect early in the root of this problem has assisted the developer to get this solution, or it's evolved to become this. And in this case, the 5/1 architecture is because there's like a loophole in the code that allows this like uh dense urban-esque condition where you can get tons of units for in one block of a city, without building like a skyscraper that requires you to use concrete and steel, which is super expensive.
right.
So you end up with like these concrete base or steel base, and then you do up to 6 floors of wood construction, which is super cheap. And that's what you end up with are these strange boxy things happening,
But is it
with repetitive
architecture?
facades, and it I would argue yes, because I've lived in one of these, and I moved in as soon as it was built. There were no ground floor tenants, like no shops at the time, so it was kind of weird at the beginning, but it depends also where it's at. Mine was like in downtown Arlington, Texas, and there were a few things around there that were worth visiting or walking to. So it does give you a node within that area, um, because the city is going to want these developments to happen because it brings more people in as dense as you can get it without going full on skyscraper.
Right.
Um, brings people into the city center,
But
gives
this,
life to it.
but to push back, it pulls people in at the expense of life and really putting the people first because it's pretty trust on the absolute cheapest building and then on
It's almost like the cookie cutter homes,
right.
like a prototype, and you just copy it and replicate the idea, change the finishes, maybe make some spaces bigger to have an upgrade option. But
Right.
other than that, it's just like copying the same idea over and over. It reminds me very much of like copy pasting projects.
Right.
Yeah,
Uh,
I just put together one of these projects, and it was you'd be surprised, or maybe you won't, at like how formulaic it is.
No, yeah,
You get
exactly.
you start with your unit, or you start with the depth of your unit, and you mirror that over a 6 foot corridor, and you get the width of your building. That's what you get to work with, and it's a very standardized thing, so you get enough daylight like into the building. And what you do is you just multiply those units across the building. Most of the time, you're trying to end up with as least different types of units as possible, and you end up with you start with a formula. You're only going to get so many different outcomes, and it's a tragedy because developers like the formulas. They want something that has worked in the past and will work again.
Right.
Uh, and that's why we end up with things like this today.
That kind of goes to a different question of I hear all the time buildings last 30 years. I'm like some parts of it, but the building itself, like it has to be completely destroyed or even completely cutted
Yeah.
like wow. Yeah.
Is this good or bad?
that,
Holy cow.
That is done by a PsyArc professor.
Ah,
yeah, it's right across the street from PsyArc.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I appreciate that it's trying to do something different. I guess like some critiques about it is it has super long hallways.
Super duper long.
bro.
And
And this is another thing, the numbering system is confusing.
yeah, on
Holy cow.
one half of the building, floor 4 is floor 5 on the other half. So it's like if you walk far enough, you end up on a whole other floor, but you haven't walked up or downstairs. And it's like, bro,
Jeez.
you could have just kept it, but no.
No, I guess in a way it's successful because it does have like a plaza
Yeah,
area
the
and it looks like
plazas
it's
are.
really used.
Yeah.
Uh,
Question is it
it,
any better than this?
no,
The masterpiece building,
Oh.
Corb.
It
Let
could
me
have had
tell you.
a better integration with the site, but honestly, it's like floating. It's as if he put the idea on the earth and was like, here, you can put it anywhere. Just do this. Here's the formula. But then building codes and fire codes and all this other stuff
Right.
really
That's another
demands.
thing
All
that
that
really
stuff, no, no,
influences.
no. All that stuff, it does influence, but you can celebrate it a lot more. But then contractors or the bid comes back and it's like, yeah, we should make it a
A
six
lot
foot
of
hallway
times,
instead of a 10-foot hallway.
I know the code can feel like it like beats down on architects, but a lot of times it's almost as if the code is like protecting the architects, because a lot of times developers will be like, "Can we please cut this back? Can we make this corridor longer to get more units? Come on, like, can we do something to increase the efficiency here?" And as architects, we're supposed to be like, "Yo, the code can't do that." I mean, we have our own agendas and we would tell you our own reasons, but the code is like getting our back here. And I've had like instances of that where like, the developer wanted to do something just monstrous, and we're like, "Hey, the code will not."
Right.
So we always have to find some other way to make it monstrous. Um, but I mean, that's the thing. Like back then, this building is driven by an architect. This was before uh, this is before contractors and whoever is responsible for doing the budget of these buildings knew exactly what they were doing. Like concrete was this new material, steel was this new material. So architects, the modernist architects like Corbusier, had the benefit of like being the pioneers of this. So they got to
Well, but
design. Go
ob-
ahead.
obviously economics are very complex, but with it being new and over time it becoming cheaper because it's more efficient, and we do have a lot better concrete and steel now, but it's still concrete and steel, and that's super expensive. How are they able to easily, just throw this stuff around? Yes, it is post World War II Europe, so there's a bunch of building that's happening. So if the material is like close by already, it's probably pretty cheap. But still, like building is crazy expensive, even though we're building it in like the cheapest way. But also, at least out here in LA, obviously, like labor is like an astronomical amount of the actual building cost.
Hmm.
Which, like, I'm not saying like we should pay these homies any less, and I always feel as if like my job is super cushy at a job site because that's some actual manual
Hmm.
labor. But in this era, they were able to push it forward as an individual. So a bit back to the topic of who today is pushing it as an individual per se, and then what really is that called, and is it good, or especially because of AI, are we on a precipice of a brand new era that we actually don't know what's about to happen?
It's kind of like the movie discussion. Like we're moving from like along with the good movies back then, there was always that star director leading that movie. And usually it's because that star director had like he's the genius directing, everyone else to make this great product.
But who is it now? Because even all the people we looked up to in school, it's the same people our professors looked up to in school. And they're pretty
Mhm.
much way past any prime. And even now, they're not there. Like they actually.
Well, especially America sold its soul to the cars and bankers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the cars.
yeah.
Oh man. I
Oil.
mean the code that it's ruining our city planning,
Right. One
the parking
phrase,
lot.
one phrase that my Tad has uh, is architecture is nothing but a reflection of its politics,
Of its what?
of the politics of the area,
Mm,
and that's the code. And if there is no politics, you end up with like slums because there's no order at all. But you can have Tatsis, you can have,
Jesus.
wow, that's
Oh,
wild.
you know what's interesting? Um, Forgot the name of it, but this thing, holy, in Pyongyang,
Oh yeah,
North Korea.
yeah, that
Holy
thing's
cow!
hilarious.
Oh, is it LED?
Oh,
That's fucking sick.
how expensive was that shit?
But that's like their one like jewel, or I guess the whole capital is like the jewel of North Korea, and then everything outside of it allegedly is just a wasteland.
But like, what are the most inspiring buildings right now that really makes you think and is not just some Avatar 3
To be honest, I defer to like those small guys,
pull
like
it
the
up, Jamie?
smaller firms coming up. Yeah, I
Like
mean,
who?
in
Like
school, I am glad I went back to grad school because in undergrad you get like all the big names of the past. In grad, all the professors are like they're like super nerds of the present, and they have all these like present day. Even
Contemporary.
Bijan, yeah, even Bijan, compared to the fourth year we took him, I took him again for grad school. He had like all these new names out of nowhere, and he's like, "Look
Nice.
up this guy and this guy."
Ins-
For
in-
example,
Instead of just Sterling over and over again. I mean,
yeah, same story.
Sterling's a beast, but like it's also like what he was taught, you know.
Right.
Instead of what's popping right now that builds off of all of that. Ray
Bay Jones.
Jones,
No, that's not the one.
Arkansas
Bay Jones is
architect. Yeah,
Bay Jones is pretty sick though.
yeah. The thing is the most notable building in all of Arkansas.
Oh, here's a good one. Um, like this is a
Oh
big firm
yeah,
nowadays, but it's not like in your face big.
that's beautiful.
They're still considered like the small guys, but they're doing like it's their own kind of thing borrowed from old principles of older movements.
Right, bro. I'm gonna
It's kind of
totally
like,
steal this as a precedent.
yeah,
'Cause
do
I need
that. I mean,
this.
I have a whole book for them. It's at
Oh, you
work right
do?
now, but I
Nice.
bought um Tom Kundig has a he has two books. You should buy them because they do have like cool little like this cabin right here. It has like a
Wow.
detail of like this whole lever thing
That,
going on,
that's cool.
and the drawings
That's
that he
cute.
does are really nice.
Yeah.
But this is what you get. You get like these smaller individuals, not like leading the charge architecture, but like taking what they know and doing what they can do the best that they can do. And I'm
Right.
sure that it's been that way throughout history, but like we've dispersed the main idea so much and we've followed this entropic idea so much that now everything's kind of scattered, I feel like. And we have the only thing we can do is have these individuals doing their own individual idea the best they can do.
But then,
And these are the star players nowadays. They're smaller stars,
right,
but they're there.
smaller, doesn't that quite limit you? And this is a thought I just had that seems completely antithetical to me, but can AI and the hastening and increase in accuracy of the actual construction element of it, can that free up individuals more to pursue in a much more human design way? Because obviously all of us fear a completely AI generated design, and then completely AI to the code drawings, and then boom, it's done. Well, then who's AI? And then like what's happening actually? And there, it is completely devoid of that human
Right.
touch. You know?
I fear that
Yeah, Vanessa.
AI will drive it even more entropic, sadly.
I think so too. I think architects need to really stick together and get political power, either political power, or development power. Because really, it's not even architects driving current design decisions, it's developers and bankers. So they're
Hmm.
creating the limitations for us, and they created that box for us. So of course, everything's gonna look like a prototype.
Right.
I would push
Also,
back that we put ourselves in that box instead of taking on that risk of developing, because there's so many gigantic firms. Like, are their budgets really that tight that they can't snag a construction loan off of drawings that they've
Well,
done?
well, they took away the money from us. They have the money. Oh, money is political power.
Yeah.
And not that it's like architecture should be seen as like a greedy. um, career or passion. So that manipulation of we should work in architecture for passion, not for money, it comes at a cost because when we work for the passion and not the money, that's like us accepting we don't have a say in our own decisions. It's not even about the money, really. It's more about the fact that we're letting go of power and design, power, or even design over the landscape, landscape, and we're giving it to people who don't even have a design background.
No.
Right, right. It's it, that is really the era that we're in. Because like the building we're staring at, it's like okay, it's a building, like la da, like is it architecture? Because in school, especially Chief Hoser himself, McDonald was like,
Oof.
there's only 2% of actual architecture out there. Everything else is crap. And so of that
Well,
2%, what do y'all think? Like instead of honing in on the bad, because people have always needed at least a home, and then they've found a pretty cheap way of building it. But like right how like is Porphosis still brilliant? And that's probably the best example of it's not Tom Main Architects.
mm,
It isn't Cyark Plus. It's related to all those things, but especially after hearing him speak, I don't know who his proteges are. I mean, I'm sure there's an astronomical amount, but his design philosophy and really their philosophy, because it's so many people, but it's really starting at the questions instead of okay, budget. Like people come to him to build buildings. That people want to go to and will spend money at, or at least it's fronted by governments or institutions. What's interesting is in the work he showed, especially recently, it's an astronomical amount in China, because they can like crank out. You flexing your own work
no, no, no.
like Venturi, bro. I see you, bro. Push it out there. Flex is strong. That huge mass, and then it's just floating up there. One thing, like code
It's a
wise,
style,
yeah.
though. Like, why are we drawn to do this type of thing? Like, that was something that just came out of the back of my mind.
Well, think about it. It started off with a teepee, and then we moved to columns and beams, and then it got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and beefier, and then we flipped it, and we realized with steel we can do this, and it is incredibly interesting of it appears floating, and its own bright. All of us understand it's built, but that is in formalism. That is the architecture of it, having it appear like how it's not actually constructed, and the construction of it actually masks all of that.
Sorry, I just had to pull it up.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
I see this so much nowadays. It's like this. I mean, this one, uh, is
The
cool in its own right.
It's
But
the fucking caterpillar, bro. That's what it
bro, what
is.
is? No one screw up their Photoshop?
I don't know what's happening.
You see that?
There's should probably know my dad's work much better, but I actually don't, cause he did one that is almost like just like that, not in like the exact same way, but in part T, it's praised up. But there is something to freeing the building from the ground floor, and
Right.
that's actually a
That's
very
their whole thing.
right, and it's a very beautiful evolution because ideally buildings shouldn't fuck with the ground too much because then you have to dig up all that nature. Ideally, it can integrate well with it. I don't. Over time, trees will just like the roots will take over eventually. Like a building. Like
Hmm.
it's wild to me how in building, it's the moment is done, entropy starts and it breaks down. Like we haven't been able to find truly regenerative architecture, which is a whole other thing. Like,
Check this out. I think I showed you guys this.
no, I haven't
This is
seen
going
that.
up next to all the stadiums in Arlington.
Wait, really?
National Medal of Honor Museum.
That's
There's
gigantic.
the baseball stadium back
Oh,
there.
it's right there. Oh.
Yeah, it's like right here
It's,
in the entertainment district.
so it's a
But that,
huge
talk about freeing it from the
pavilion.
ground.
Yeah. Oh, the buildings. Oh, that's
You
the
can go in
actual
it.
museum up there.
This is
That's
done
interesting. That's
by
really nice.
the guy who did the huge Pintle Tower in New York City, Benoli.
Yeah,
Benoli.
Vanoli. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Oh,
He's
he
coming to
did it.
Arlington.
Oh,
Interesting, huh?
that's one of my dad's favorites, actually. I wonder if he
Really?
knows. Yeah, he he put on a big print about Pignoli, if that's how you say it. But that looks pretty clean. It is really thick up there, but it's also put the museum. You can do anything because you want to block out all that direct light.
Yeah.
So
Jeez.
yeah.
5 pillars.
Are
That's all you
the
need.
elevators in the pillars? Because you can't ask
Uh,
everybody to.
it's a. Oh wait, that's not a ramp.
No, those are stairs on me. And there's stairs down to go up. That's just cruel.
Huh.
It's an experience, that's for sure.
Yeah, I wonder how that works.
But like today, is there even one prevailing style?
That's the thing. I think that's what we're concluding is that it's just like we've the diamond has been or the glass has been fragmented in so many different ways. But I think like anything in this world, it's a cycle. I think things have always been fragmented and then they come together to this really strong idea and it
Right,
always responds to whatever the culture is, whatever the political situation is.
right,
If there's wars, I mean, the strongest architecture idea we've seen from today was after World War II, basically. You get the strongest modernist, postmodernist is starting to ramp up after that.
right. But also, like, if the Nazis won, it'd have been a different
Ah,
story of building, and a
yeah.
whole different story of history. But that's a whole other podcast. But here today, it's called how it is so fractionated that honestly, I'm not terribly impressed by that much anymore because I'm like, okay, I can see or I can assume precedence because I've seen that column style, that spatial condition. Even this, I haven't seen anything exactly like it, but I can see a lot of inspiration from a few things out there that maybe he didn't actually draw from. But if I think it is akin to that, then it's all pretty been done, even in that arrangements. Like this will be this only building with this floor plan, but like I think, or at least I hope, the next push of style is actually not in anything formal or anything structural or even anything in materials, even though those are all crucial. I hope it's in program, and that's back to the code and back to the politics, and it
It's also back to us, like the
right.
Yeah.
consumers of this architecture. Like, what do we want? Why are we making all these production cookie cutter homes for so many people? I mean, are these people complacent with it? Is it
Yeah,
just
they
the
are.
most affordable thing for them? Like,
It's
why?
their only
Because if
option.
these people all of a sudden
But
revolted and said, "We don't want this anymore," what's going to happen? I mean, they're going
right,
to have to bend the production companies and the designers. They're going to have to bend their knee to what the people want. But how's that going to happen? How is everyone simultaneously? It's always these small factors in the government, pulling strings here and there to get what they want. But unless there is some kind of revolution of the masses,
right,
it's going to happen.
I'm interested to see if there'd be new interest in redeveloping current buildings. Like for example, malls are dying. It could be cool to look at the idea of a mall and see how we can change either the program or um, change the program, change the layout, change whatever about it. Because it could be like a school, it could even be like a university, it could be a high school, it could be a
housing.
mix of school or housing. It's almost like it could be this urban space that's interior.
Right, and for the most part, it's like, okay, well, some of these are like renderings or something, but
Yeah, it's
it
from a
happens
video
so
game.
punch, and it's happening now kind of through economics. Different but still businesses are pulling in to, like, of the past malls I've gone to. There's always a gym, there's always an accountant, there's always like glasses. That stuff wasn't really at the mall, like growing up. It was all just commercial retail. Now it's becoming a bit more usable, but that's still just retail. I have to leave. There's no real maintenance. There's no production. There's no agro. There's no transit. On and on and on. It's only one. This thing looks wild.
It's kind of scary
They're just having fun, aren't they?
because it's kind of scary because I feel like every common person hates this, but so many like big names are jumping on board with this. Like this is Michio Kaku, uh, theorist, astrophysicist. For whatever reason, he's part of this now.
Bro, it's all prepping us for the spaceships and for Mars, and
Oh
us
my
all
god.
being in like one perfect pod. Or you didn't have Nason with us, but Vanessa did, and we had good old Larry in there, and this homie had a building that was literally half a mile tall in downtown
Holy
Dallas,
shit,
and he was like, "It's a building you never have to leave." But the whole ground was parking, and I'm like, "Why do you need parking if no one's leaving?" But like,
That
bro, who
that
are the
almost
media
reminds me of
people?
the Matrix.
right,
Yeah, who who is making this shit? Holy shit, they got so much
Morphosis,
money to
bro,
do this.
and
Holy
this
cow.
the entire Saudi government.
Well, how do
Yeah.
we know we're not already in one of these?
Right. Well, yeah, that's the other thing.
And they have multiple projects
Oh,
going.
really?
The lion isn't even the only one.
Damn.
They're like cutting into mountains and
It's beautiful though.
yeah, the
No?
ski slopes.
Plants. Plants, slopes.
I don't
So
know.
they're
It's
gonna be able
weird,
to recreate mountain snow.
dude. I wouldn't doubt it. But it's like taking what's happening in Dubai and just like changing entire in like
Landscape.
ecosystems. It's like ecosystem architecture. Like the line is cutting through a desert. And some of these other projects, one of them was like cutting into a mountain, and then you got to think about the roads to get to this thing. So now you're making roads into the mountain.
Right.
It's, I don't know.
And like you're
I don't
basically
like it.
trapped there.
I
The
think lots of
octagon.
money.
Oh my god.
Yeah, lots
Katrina.
of money makes, yeah, right. Lots of money can make really cool projects, but like this is like a shit ton of money like pushed on these huge master plans where I don't think we're going to have time to do the studies to know that it's good for the world in
Yeah.
time. It's like AI is going to go so fast we're not going to be able to like understand what it's going to do for us by the time it's already taken over, like not in a woo woo way, but like it's already to a point where it's it's used in Google searches, it's used by companies now for their
For
analytics
everything.
and all this stuff they're doing. And I, anything that just like hits the accelerator in an uncontrolled pace is a little much for me. And I know they have like tons of architects on these projects, but it's all the corporate names.
Right.
I, I think they're even creating a huge city out here. It's reminding me of this. It's called
Oh,
Solano City.
the big city.
Solano Solano City in California.
Cool it
It
up,
will
Tristin.
be.
Yeah.
Solana's
It's not created yet.
project,
You
maybe.
know who's doing it?
No, I think it's Solano project. It's new.
Is it a smart city?
Billionaires back. New Solano County city map. 2024. This was like
Oh, I don't
last
know what
month.
this is.
Um, that sounded like it.
It
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
that is it.
just pause and read.
read who read?
Well, is there more images when you click that arrow? 'Cause there's some renderings out already.
What?
Not that. That's like where it's currently located.
Let's just look at images.
Or Solano renderings.
Oh, it's Solana. Or is it O? No. No, it's O.
Uh,
New
project.
city renderings. Project renderings, yeah.
Mm,
It's not exactly the line, but they're gonna create this whole city.
I know of this one, Dark Ingles Art City in like Arizona or something.
It's practice for Mars, bro.
City of the Future. Oh, that's in Japan. Oh, there's something. Guess that is in Japan. I thought there was something like in the middle of a desert, and Bjark Ingels was like, I got this inspiration from Burning Man. Like, why not just start a smart city in the desert? Or was it Elon Musk?
It was Kanye, bro.
Oh, smart city in Texas? Oh man, I follow. I think it's Design,
Yeah.
architecture magazine on Facebook, and for some reason they always post like the most controversial shit. and they're like in support of it in their articles, and just like the headlines are always like calling. I think it's intentionally being like out there so that they get people to comment on it, and everyone who comments is like always pissed off at whatever the idea that they're proposing.
Dang.
And I remember seeing one about a smart city by Elon Musk or someone, and everyone in like a city where everyone's, the robots are watching me, government knows where I am 24/7, and
China. Or
all
yeah,
that
here.
dystopian shit. So, all in all, I want to end with a clip that that I heard not too long ago, and I hope this YouTube short captures everything. But a snippet of the Tucker Carlson interview with Russell Brand, and he randomly starts talking about architecture, and I think he's got a really good point. Let's watch.
Architecture changed completely, and it went from designs that complemented the landscape around them to a kind of architecture that clearly hates people, that is designed to oppress the human spirit and make people feel without value, worthless. I think if you brought someone from the streets of Tokyo to the Cotswolds and said, "What do you think of that building?" he would say, "That's beautiful," because beauty is inherent. Every person recognizes beauty. A Shinto temple in Kyoto, I recognize it immediately as beautiful because it is. It's consistent with the symmetry of nature.
Municipal and state buildings were once plainly an expression of a contract between the people and their government of a good faith relationship.
I think that. I just thought that. I walked up with my wife in the rain on a village hall, and I thought, whoever built that cared about the people. It was built by the people who live there for the people who live there, and they loved the people who live there because they were related to them or knew them. It was built by peasants without machines. Architecture changed completely, and it.
That didn't get the whole clip that I was hoping, but you get the idea. He was basically like bashing on nature and like what happened to the humanity in it, and why do we stray away from Beaux-Arts buildings nowadays, and symmetry and all the stuff that we scoff at nowadays as art. But but
Well,
yeah,
it's funny that you say, why did we stray away from Beaux-Arts building? I would say, why did we stray away from vernacular architecture?
true.
So even further back than Beaux-Arts. Because it is an eerie feeling as us as designers designing a home in the comfort of either our home or office, and our project is like 100 miles away from us, and we won't even step foot on that site.
Damn shame.
That's why the last year's Pritzker winner was buildings out of mud and straw
Right.
in Africa.
Right.
And
it was
it was
amazing.
revolutionary for everyone.
Right. Well,
Why don't we do that?
Because it started with questions of what does this building actually need and what is the environment, and we have all of these gigantic developers, and I just hope there's more overlap of program and bringing agriculture much more back into our lives instead of being so far away. Because honestly, I saw that mass distribution hub you pulled up, and I almost puked because it's like, is that needed? Like, do we need that much industry? Like, will Earth just turn into only industry, and then people are living off planet like Bali, basically? But until we get there, like, we have technology and climates to build much more integrated buildings, because I get his point, especially about not having that humanity, but I'm not trying to go back either. I'm not trying to be neo Beaux-Arts, much more how can we harness our technology right now and truly develop something new because in my mind, we can bring in growing of simple vegetation into our buildings that we occupy, and most buildings and spaces are empty most of the time. Think of even the average office space. It's open 8, maybe 10, 12 hours, not much more, but then it's empty the rest of the time. It's thought that every space should be constantly occupied, but if they're within the same building, then we aren't having to travel or ch- transfer power to multiple places. And especially, I just saw actually recently in Compton here, they have these gigantic indoor hydro and aeroponic tower farming that provides a plethora of fresh crops. And those fresh crops are what we actually should be eating. It sounds like, oh, salad? No, there's a bunch you can do with all of it. And it obviously we won't bring all of it back local, but even understanding how to process or grow these foods is a very needed and valuable skill, much more than even having to be outside. But in many climates, you can still grow outside most of the year. So into creating growth of actual produce on these dirt roofs. But that's basically what I'll do my graduate thesis on. Like I've
Write the thesis.
yeah, like I've been
We need
called
the
to
new
this.
thesis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Where is it? Where's the individual?
I've
Where
been
is the
saying
mastermind?
I've been saying I need grad school for the thesis, or I know what I'm gonna do, but like I've already started it, and like I just have to compile it more. And like the problem is, it has to be put out in multiple mediums instead of just, okay, here's a paper that's gonna change the world. But
Right.
but
Put out
how
clips of
can
this.
what?
That put out clips of this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And how can it also permeate into academia? Because the main way I learned in school, besides trial and error, were lectures and readings, and being handed a 10, 15, or even a whole treatise, and it'd be like, read that, and then we'll talk about it. And having to truly sit there and digest not some fiction or some self-help, but a person's almost tortured thoughts about this, and about how to process through space, how to construct, how to fund it, on and on and on. And it's very complex. And I told you I do have an opening line for it, but I have to push a lot farther beyond that. And,
Yeah.
but also we have to have enough personal work that we can then shamelessly plug our own stuff at the end, and compare our own stuff to everything we
almost
just said.
twice as long as the actual written part.
Right, exactly. But that also can be done, and it doesn't always have to be built. You can
Yeah.
show the idea, and people get millions of dollars for buildings that aren't even built. That's how it
Right.
works. It's based off of
Crazy.
our drawings. So, but that is the end of my rant. Tristy, it's a very interesting and open topic that I really loved how we went in almost every different
Yeah.
direction, because how do you structure it? And I love both of y'all's feedback.
Yeah, I always try to bring in topics that are just always open-ended and wacky, and usually it's just me up here struggling to even comprehend, the subject that we're talking about. Because yeah, unlike what was supposed to be our part one, uh, it's not a divergent topic; it's a convergent topic, and there is no real answer. Really easy. You're muted, Monty.
Flip that. This is a divergent
Oh, divergent. Yeah,
topic. It fractionates out, and his
exactly,
converges on one thing of interviewing.
exactly.
Yeah.
You guys know me. I always like to bring in the philosophical point,
Yeah.
and that's kind of gonna be my own little segment. I guess the Hoser Squad lectures and
Yeah.
current events.
Yeah.
That's kind of my niche, I think, is to just ponder aimlessly around these topics. Wonder
Yeah.
if we're gonna make it. But it was fun.
Change it to Tristy Wonders.
Sounds great to me.
I'm joking.
It's always easy to look back and see what was happening. It's hard to know what's happening in the present, and it's pretty scary to wonder what's going to happen in the future. But that's the way we're going to leave it. So, thank you guys for hanging in there. I hope we can get more different minds on these types of topics in the future. So,
Amen.
thanks to our 2 viewers in the chat right now. Probably us.
Probably.
But yeah, that's it.
Ayo.
So we'll see y'all next week.
Yes,
Have a
sir.
good night, everyone. Take it easy. Don't ponder too much.
Don't ponder too much.
See y'all.